So let's say you found a skeleton. How would you tell it's a dinosaur? You personally, how would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Dapper Reacts number 184. I am here, as is necessary for Dapper. Sorry, not Dapper Reacts. Jesus, it's Kent with Ben. What am I talking about? You know what? Dapper's a professional. We're gonna take a drink already. I'm here for Kent with Bent 184. We're not even on at 184 for Dapper Reacts, but I'm here with Bent, who is a necessary component of Kent with Bent because he's the Bent.
It's true. I am the Bent.
Yeah, Bent. Do you
That's my
remember
name.
years ago when we used to just kind of hang out in Discord and watch some random Kent Hovind debates?
Yes.
Yeah, and that was
And you would explain to me why Kent was wrong.
Yep. And that is the genesis of this entire thing. I was back in Massachusetts. You were in Wisconsin at the time?
No, I was in Arizona.
Were you? Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
Okay. All right, fair. But yeah, we were just sitting around. No one was around. Like, there was no audience. It was just you and me hanging out, me debunking Kent Hovind. Bitcores, who's been a member for 41 months, says, "Don't forget to drink for last time's Trojan source with an AIG as bag of dicks." You know what? I don't remember that, but I will drink twice. Once for the AIG and once for the Trojan source that I believe you about. I am drinking a rum and cola today. I got 4 nip bottles of rum. So, yeah.
Nice.
The question is, how many nip bottles will I go through during the stream? And it depends on 2 things, Kent and the audience. Because we're about to talk about the drinking rules after we tell anyone new what the whole deal is here. So, Bitcores, I told you to remind me. Well, it's a good thing I did because I forgot apparently. So, good job. Thank you for reminding me. All right. So, this show is a show where we take a look at the almost entirely nonsense claims of Kent Hovind. I say almost entirely because sometimes he gets some things right, or he is like mostly right about a few things. Here and there, it happens. However, for the most part, he is wrong about virtually everything, and often in baffling ways. Like, wrong in ways that no one should ever be wrong, and about things that there's no reason for him to be wrong about. And so that is what this show is, which is, I'm just saying it for the benefit of anyone who this might be their first Kent with Bent. Dutch Tunica Official for $2 says, "Celebrating my gobies arriving tomorrow with a Godzilla, so we'll take a drink for the Godzilla, and congratulations on getting some cool fish. I hope they arrive healthy, and that you have everything set up for them so that they remain healthy." So, as you can see, because we have a drink counter, this stream is also a sort of a drinking game. Now, we have some drink triggers, and we will go through them, but before we do, I do want to say, first of all, if you want to play along, and you don't want to drink alcohol, that is absolutely fine. This is not something where I want people to feel like, oh, I gotta go get a drink that I normally wouldn't do or anything like that, right? You can play along with water, juice, tea, coffee, soda. You can play along with a vape pen. You can play along by, like, I don't know, eating a piece of popcorn or a chip or high-fiving someone next to you or whatever, right? This is just for fun. And if drinking alcohol isn't going to be fun for you or it's not safe for you for any reason, please don't, and don't feel like you have to. I am drinking some rum. But Bent here is not drinking alcohol. What are you drinking today, Bent?
I'm drinking lemonade, and I also have iced coffee.
There you go. See? So yeah, please do not feel like you have to participate with any intoxicating substance if you don't want to. It is just for fun. And I have the advantage that I can wake up whenever I want tomorrow. So, like, if I end up having way too much to drink and getting a hangover, that's okay, because I can just shift my work schedule back, right? Instead of getting up and starting work at like 6 a.m., which is what I normally end up doing, I can start work at 10 a.m. And it doesn't matter, because I can still work. So I know most people don't have that advantage. So let's see. We do have a super chat goal. So if we get 20 super chats in the next, basically between now and when we end, we will be unleashed, which basically means we can drop more curses, because I try to keep this stream PG-13, but if we get there, we can switch it up to R. Now, if you do want to play along and you are going to be using an intoxicating substance, please be careful, pace yourself, know your limit, don't overdo it, and then if you go ahead and get intoxicated, don't go out and drive a car, fly an aircraft, operate heavy machinery, or text your ex. These are all bad ideas. Don't do them. So that being said, our drink triggers, first of all, you already saw some of them, which is that if you send anything to the effect of Answers in Genesis is a bag of dicks, that's AIG, Answers in Genesis, we will take a drink. Now, you can't just type into a super chat or a membership milestone chat that just AIG is a bag of dicks, right? The YouTube will censor it. So you do have to be a little bit creative, but we will take a drink for that. We also have an emoji if you're a channel member that basically automatically triggers it. Further, speaking of emojis, if you send an emoji that has any of the, or that is of any of the kaiju that we have, which includes Mothra, Godzilla, King Ghidorah, and our honorary kaiju, Carmen the tiny little dog, who is kind of the opposite of a kaiju, but she's an honorary kaiju anyway. We will take a drink for Carmen and for any of the other kaiju. We will also take a drink if Kent Hovind says something that's just so stupid we kind of have to as brain coolant. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind gets something actually correct, but it's not something he's just reading off of something. He can't just be quoting it. It has to actually be coming out of his brain into his vocal apparatus and then into our ears as a correct information. Take a drink for that. That we do start to get a little bit generous after a little while, especially if we haven't had a fair few drinks. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind tells a joke that doesn't land or a story that didn't happen. With that story that didn't happen, that is a little bit of a judgment call. We have to decide, like, do we feel like this is a plausible story that could have actually happened? And if the answer is yes, then we don't take a drink. And if the answer is no, then we do take a drink. And I'm the one who has final decision on all of these, including that one. We'll take a drink if Kent Hovind mentioned the Nazis. Doesn't have to call anyone a Nazi or compare them to Nazis, just have to mention them. We'll also take a drink if Kent Hovind cites a source, we check the source, and not only does the source not support him, but if it actively contradicts him, then we take a drink. We call that a Trojan source. If Kent Hovind mixes up what we can know about Lucy, the single specimen of Australopithecus afarensis based just on her bones, with what we can know about her or any wider taxon on the basis of other specimens, we take a drink, but we can only do that once per stream, and we call that an ad hominid. We will also take a drink if either Bent or I can successfully predict what's going on. We'll also take a drink if I screw up the production. So, for instance, if I fail to unmute on coming back from a break, or I played the wrong video at some point, or stuff like that. Well, that's a Dapper as a professional. We take a drink for that. That one does not include things that are beyond my control. So if like a browser crashes, or my broadcasting software crashes, or the power goes out, stuff like that, not Dapper as a professional because outside of my control, so it doesn't count. We'll also take a drink if anyone gifts memberships. So you can gift memberships. I believe they're $4.99 per membership. And we will take a drink per gifted membership up until the point where we have about 30, at which point I will just finish whatever drink I have and go get another one. So that is a way to make me finish the drink, finish my drink, is to get us to a queue of like 30 or more super chats. Not super chats, sorry, gifted memberships. Let's see. I think I've covered all of them. Bent, what am I missing?
Did you mention the kaiju monsters coming by audibly?
I did not. No. Yeah. So it's possible that Mothra or Godzilla might come by audibly, and if they do, we will take a drink for it. Is there anything else I'm missing?
I think that's all of them.
All right. We have a few super chats here. Grun Gavaldi Gurnison for $2 says, Dapper in 2 hours. But why is the rum gone? Yeah. Well, maybe. We'll see, right? Because usually Kent isn't enough to make me drink 4 whole drinks worth of alcohol. But you guys might be able to. In fact, if you do, we would probably also get Bent to have some free pizza because he doesn't normally get to eat. Naramda puts for $2 says, make with the cussing. Thank you very much. Let's see. Then for $5, Isabella Tracer says, Réponse aux jeunesse est un sac de bite. I think that translates out correctly. My French is very rusty. It makes sense to me, and I know what you meant, so I'm taking a drink for it, because that, in fact, does, as far as I can tell, say Answers in Genesis is a bag of dicks. Although I think it's de with an S, D-E-S, not de. Because it's plural. But I might be wrong there. No, I think it is D-E. Yeah, I think you're right. You know what? My French is rusty too. Last time I formally studied French was high school, if you can believe that. David Smith VR1NB sends a £2 super chat with no message. Thank you very much. Let's see. Erhamian sends a $5 super chat with no message. And then Dutch Tunicate Official for $2 says AIG. Oh, sorry. AIG. I think it is. Oh, this is not actually even real French. Okay. AIG has l'air du pretentieux de prick. Sorry. I'll take a drink for that. That's fine. That works. Which also means I put the counter, I need to increment it by 2. There we go. Let's see. Fitz Brady for $2 says Dapper stream on my birthday. Yes, please, with an attempt at an AIG as a bag of dicks, and I'll take a drink for it because YouTube mobile doesn't like to let people use emojis. Okay.
Happy birthday.
Yes, happy birthday. And I think that means that we are caught up. And I will update the tracker here. This tracker is, in fact, not linked to like an API or anything. I have to do it manually, which is why sometimes it's not like always keeping up. All right, well, that actually puts us so that we only need 12 more super chats, and then I can start dropping F-bombs. So can you, Bent.
Awesome.
Do you remember how to do that, like from when you were in the Navy?
I do.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So when last we were here, Kent Hovind was going on about how a moon rock was dated to an age that is not the current consensus age for the moon, which is a weird thing for him to complain about, given that the moon rock was, according to him, from one of the lunar mare, which we know are younger than the whole moon as a whole thing, which means you would expect them to be younger. So I don't know why he thought that was a problem. And this is as part of his whole rant against radiometric dating, and it earlier included a whole bunch of nonsense about carbon dating, most of which was just not true, including his idea that we don't have any kind of calibration. So that's where we are. Now, we do not have much longer with this video, but I do have the next video already downloaded. So if we get to the end of this video, which is possible, we've only got about, 8 minutes left of this video, a little less. We do have another one queued up. However, I have been known to go through an entire 2-hour stream and get through less than 8 minutes of the original material. So we'll see what happens. All right, here we go.
Here's some things to consider about carbon dating.
Okay, back to carbon
Wild
dating.
dates are often obtained. Dates that don't fit the evolutionary theory are rejected and not published.
So that's actually not true. I actually do know people who do carbon dating as part of their job, who publish carbon dates, and erroneous dates are usually investigated. And usually what happens is we find that there is some reason for the date to be erroneous, and then we double check, or we realize that the sample cannot actually be dated for various reasons, like it's thoroughly contaminated or something like that. So problems might be things like improper collection methods, improper handling at the site where it's collected, improper handling at the lab, things like that. Or it could be a object that is from a source that is known to not be reliably carbon datable. So for instance, we have what are called carbon reservoirs, where the carbon in the local environment is unusually low in carbon-14. So some examples of this would be the ocean generally, because the ocean absorbs less carbon from the atmosphere, and a lot of the carbon is just floating in the biosphere and being recycled through the biosphere, and has been for tens of thousands of years. Also near fossil fuel plants or fossil fuel in like coal mines and things like that, or by roadsides where cars are going by, and a lot of the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere is actually from car exhaust, which is already very old carbon. Those are places where we can get unusually old radiocarbon dates, and so we know not to use those samples and those dates at, because we know they're unreliable. But yeah, for the most part, we do not get very many wild dates, and those that are acquired are usually either quickly noticed and fixed, or we realize that they're from sources that you can't really carbon date. So yeah, it's just not really true that this is some big problem and there's a big conspiracy to hide this fact.
Correct dates that get published match the geologic column.
So first of all, carbon dating very rarely has to be matched with the geologic column, because most of the geological column is way too old to have any kind of carbon dating be effective. So no, sorry. But what we do is sometimes when radiometric dating ends up giving us a date that we weren't expecting for a particular layer of rock in the Earth, we revise how old we think the rock is. So there is that. That has happened.
So why did you date it to begin with?
Because we wanted to know how old it was, Kent.
You already think you know how old it was based on your geologic column. Why are you doing it with carbon? Why check it with carbon dating?
Oh, Bent, you actually might even know this. The difference between absolute and relative dating.
I can't remember.
All right. So the geological column gives us relative dates. So we can say this is older than this. And so like, think about it like, you might have a stack of plates in your kitchen, right? And that's like where when you need plates, you grab them off the stack. And when you clean them, you put them back on the stack. Now, generally speaking, when you're putting plates onto the stack, you're going to put them at the top, right? Because you're probably not going to lift the whole stack and slide one under. That sounds like a unnecessary risk and unnecessary effort. So what you can say with pretty high confidence is that if you look at a stack of plates in someone's kitchen, the ones that were in the stack the longest are the lowest down in the stack. So the bottom of the stack, the first plate at the bottom, is the one that has been in that stack the longest, and so on. Now, how long have any of those plates been in the stack? You don't know the actual number. You can't put like a number with a unit on it. You can't say this plate has been in this stack for 3 days, 4 hours, and 36 minutes, 27 seconds. You can't do that. But you can tell which one is older and which one is younger. And that's relative dating. Now, absolute dating gives us an actual number with a unit on it, like years or millions of years or whatever. And that's why we use radiometric dating, is to get an absolute age rather than just knowing, well, the Jurassic is newer than the Triassic and it's older than the Cretaceous, which we've known for much longer than we've actually been able to get good dates for those. So that's why we do it. And no, it is not the case that we date the fossils by the rock and the rock by the fossils. In fact, we use index fossils as a clue, but we use a combination of relative and absolute methods from stratigraphy and radiometric dating to actually date the rocks, and those date the fossils, and then some fossils can then go on to become index fossils that can clue us in that, hey, we're probably working in this layer of the Earth.
It's based on the assumption that the original content of the sample is known. It's based on the assumption the decay rate never changes, based on the assumption the sample has not been contaminated.
Okay, so a few things here. The original content is actually not always known, but what we do is we have calibration curves. So we talked about this a lot about this last time, so I'm not going to go real in depth, but we can calibrate it against things like atmospheric bubble and ice cores, dendrochronology, what is it? There's a luminescence dating, electron spin resonance dating. There are a whole bunch of dating techniques that are not dependent on the original concentration of carbon-14 in the atmosphere, as well as some that we can use to check what it would have been. And so with a combination of all these corroborating dating techniques, we can build up what's called a calibration curve. We can say, okay, well, we know that the rate of production of carbon-14 in the atmosphere has not actually been in steady state for the entire 50,000 years or so that we can use radiometric dating for. And so we check. Yeah, we just check. And one thing that's cool is with dendrochronology, you can radiocarbon date the wood as well as use the tree rings to count. So we can use both techniques on the same bit of wood and get an absolute age both ways and see how close they are and use that to very tightly calibrate the radiocarbon dating.
I would like to point out, just by way of passing here, all these decays. Potassium decays to argon. Uranium...
Oh, I forgot to say, decay rates never change. Yeah, that's because those are dependent on physical constants that don't normally just change willy-nilly. And further, if you were to do the things, if you were to change those constants, which is mostly the strength of the weak nuclear force, it would also destabilize what are currently stable isotopes, which would mean that there would be even more radiation than you think. And also, we could detect that by unusual isotopic ratios as a result of new decay chains that would only exist in the case of accelerated decay that would not normally exist. And like we can like just predict this, right? You can look at a nucleus and say, okay, if the force of a weak nuclear force were this much lower, how much more unstable or how unstable would this nuclide be in that case? And yeah, we don't have any evidence of that having happened. And also, it's just like, what if physics were different? And to that, I would say, okay, well, maybe, but then at that point, we can't just do science at all. Like, if you think that physics might just change tomorrow, well, then what's the point of doing any physics? As for the sample has not been contaminated, no, we don't make that assumption. We check. And we also do things to try to make sure that we don't contaminate the sample.
Decays to lead. All of the decays are elements going downhill on the periodic table, not uphill.
I assume by that he means going to lower numbers of like nucleons, like protons and neutrons. And that's true. That's what's meant by decay. The other option is capture, which does also happen, but like I don't know what his point is here. Like, yeah.
So if the Big Bang made hydrogen, how do you move uphill to get to uranium?
Fusion. That's it. It's fusion.
So that it can start decaying back down. Something just to consider.
No, Kent. We've known for decades. It's fusion. It's fusion. I'm taking a drink. Fusion is a thing. We can do it here on Earth. We're not great at it, but we can do it. And also, you yourself explained how you could go from carbon to nitrogen and back by neutron capture and things like that, right? Like, we have ways to go up in nuclear weight, both with protons and neutrons. Fear Uckfeistmonger says, no, an element's proton number absolutely can go up via beta decay. That's true. You can have some beta minus decay and have the proton number go up. But that's not a major source of like new higher proton number elements, that those themselves usually quickly decay. So it is the case that you're not going to get like a bunch of hydrogen and helium to decay into carbon or something. So yeah, there is beta minus decay, which does result in going up to a higher number in terms of proton number.
Basalt, which would be from a volcano,
Okay.
lava flow, from Mount Etna in Sicily in 122 BC when it erupted. When they took samples of this basalt and potassium argon dated it, they said it's 250,000 years old.
Well, yeah, because that's pretty much like the level of specificity you can get with potassium argon, which is a very long range thing. But also, we've dated the eruption at Mount Vesuvius, the one that destroyed Herculaneum and it's the more famous one. Why can't I remember it? Bent, help out. Pompeii.
I'm not sure what you're going for. I'm sorry.
Pompeii, Mount Vesuvius.
Okay.
Yeah. That eruption we managed to date to the actual calendar date given to us by like Pliny the Younger, who was like there. I mean, he was on the ocean, so he lived, but like he watched it happen. If I remember correctly, he actually got into a boat and started leaving because the earthquake started to worry him. And he was like, you know what? Maybe I should be on the ocean. And it turns out, yes, that was the right call, Pliny. Or Pliny, or whatever other way you want me to pronounce it. But yeah, so why does this happen? So basically, first thing is measurements always have an error margin. And even just measuring how tall something is, right? Like your ruler or your measuring tape or whatever it is you're using to measure the length of something has marks. And between those marks, it's not, your eyeball is going to have a hard time distinguishing exactly where along those marks things are. And also the marks themselves have a size. They're not infinitely thin. So even whether or not it's on a mark or not, like you still can't be exactly sure where within that mark is. Because if you wanted an exact measurement, you'd be going like down to the Planck length. But your ruler can't do that. And so you have a margin of error with every measurement. This is for the flat earthers out there. There is no such thing as a perfect measurement with no margin of error. Now, for most things like, oh, hey, how tall is my table in the kitchen? You're probably not going to report a margin of error because no one really cares that much. But in science, you do. And another rule of thumb is that the higher the amount that you're measuring, a lot of times the bigger your margin of error is going to be. So for your kitchen scale, the margin of error might be like, 1/10 of a gram. But for a truck scale, it's going to be a whole lot more than that. It could be a few kilograms of error, right? And that's because, generally speaking, when you're measuring larger quantities, you have to use less sensitive techniques, which is the case for radiometric dating. If we want to measure something that's, like 3 billion years old, our margin of error of, say, 250,000 years either way is actually pretty good. And if you're measuring something that's so young that its age is within the margin of error, then the answer you're going to get is just basically going to be more or less the margin of error at years old. And that's what happens. Like, cool. It's not very significant. It's, I don't know. Joshua Geese for $5 says basalt that had a Bachelor of Arts. That's pretty good, but no, that is not what basalt is. Basalt is actually what the majority of the crust of the ocean is made of. After you get through like the muck, it's mostly basalt. In fact, to a large extent, whether crust is oceanic or continental depends on what kind of lava went to make it up.
Well, now hold it. We know it's only 2,000 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Why would it give a potassium argon date of 250,000 years?
Oh, because the 2,000 years old is within the margin of error. Like, Bent, I bet that you are 300 years old plus or minus 500 years.
Yep.
There you go. We know Ben's not 300 years old. Well, I know Ben's not 300 years old. I guess some other people might not. I know he's not.
Yeah, you guys don't know that.
Yeah, but I do. Because we were in the Navy together, and they wouldn't have let you join if you had been, like, that old. So, there you go.
Exactly.
Of course, I didn't tell them how old I was. I used my fake human birth certificate. They never knew. Anyway, but yeah, that's what happens when you have a big margin of error. It turns out that the real answer is somewhere within it, but the margin of error might be significantly larger than the actual measurement should be if you were to be precise about it. Like, okay, sorry. I'm actually not even sorry. Well, I am sorry about bumping my mic. That's just how measurements work, right? Like, don't come to complain to me that, like, your 1 pound paint can gave a weight of 5 pounds on the truck scale when you weighed it on the truck scale. Like, that's just how truck scales work. Use a different scale.
Well, suppose some of the argon is leaking out.
Well, it's probably not, because it's contained within a crystal. And, like, where would it leak out from? You can put argon inside most containers. It's not like it's hydrogen, which will leak out of just about anything.
They're checking the potassium compared to the argon. If the argon's leaking, you're going to get an old number.
That's true, you would. And the way that we do that is we use more than one technique usually. So if you're actually like a geologist who's involved in radiometric dating of rocks, usually you don't just rely on one technique. And if one of them is way off, then that's probably an indication of like open system, so something has leaked out, or contamination, or something like that. And in fact, there's an entire technique of radiometric dating involving multiple techniques added together, not added, but like compared to each other, called isochron dating. We use multiple techniques. And if there has been leakage from the system or contamination, then when you plot out all of the ratios, they will be non-linear, whereas they will be, approximately linear for a valid date. And so if all the dates line up and form a linear plot, then you know that there has been significant contamination, and you know that the system has been effectively closed since it cooled from a molten state. So we just check, right? Petite Flower for $5 says, if you use the wrong tool, you get the wrong answer. Kent is the wrong tool for everything. That is true, especially tax advice. Do not take tax advice from Kent Hovind. You will end up in prison like he did. Let's see. Zerolon says, fun fact about truck scales. We know they don't work at the 1 pound range, so the ones digit doesn't even move. It always reads 0. Ah, all right. That's cool. I did not know that. See, I've never actually used one. I know they exist, but Zerolon here is a trucker, so it makes sense that he would know. All right, let me update our number here so that we are staying accurate, because you never know. Bent might get free pizza. Look at him. Look how hungry he looks.
I'm actually pretty hungry.
See? Get him free pizza, everybody.
for pizza.
Yeah.
It would be great.
Plus, I would like to do a fancy avatar because I haven't done one in a while.
Just because it's leaked out. Hawaiian lava flow 1801. When it erupted, they knew it erupted 1801. That was historical. It's observation. Gave a potassium argon date of 1.6 million years old. And
Also, I like how all of the references for this are from like Impact and Letters to the Editor. Impact is not a peer-reviewed journal, and the rest of them are just like some guy was like, "Hey man, what's up with this? Like, Kent, why aren't you citing the study that actually reported these?" And the answer is because there's only two options. Either it's just from a creationist nonsense journal, or the paper itself actually explains things. And given that it's Kent, it's almost certainly that he's just getting this secondhand from creationist sources. So, yeah.
they'll say, yeah, we know some of these dates we get are wrong. Okay, well then how do you know any of them you get are right?
Oh, by checking, right? Like, okay. Ben, let's say I gave you a scale and like 1,000 $quarter coins. So in the US, those are just quarters, but like 25-cent coins, right? 1,000 of them. And I ask you to tell me what the average weight of a quarter is based on this sample. But then as you're going through, one of them ends up weighing not like, 10, 15 grams. I don't actually know how much a quarter weighs, but we'll say it's somewhere around 10, 15 grams. But it ends up weighing like a kilogram. Well, that's perhaps excessive. Let's say it weighs like 30 grams. And then you're like, well, okay, that's weird. Something's off, right? So do you just say, well, most quarters are between 10 and 15 grams, but sometimes they're 30 grams? Probably not. You probably investigate. And then maybe it turns out that like this is actually like a counterfeit quarter that was stamped out of lead. Well, there you go. Maybe it was like lead with a thin coating of whatever it is, silver or nickel or whatever it is quarters are made of. I'm not a coin nerd, so don't at me. I don't even know what the term for a coin nerd is. I'm sure there's a very fancy word for coin nerds. And hey, no knock in coin nerdery. It's very cool. Keep at it if that's your thing. But like, that's what we do, right? We find, oh, look, an anomaly. Let's look into it. And even if you couldn't determine that it was because it was actually like a fake quarter cast in lead with a thin veneer on it or something, chances are you would still conclude, well, something's probably wrong with this one. Right? Not just that sometimes 25-cent coins in the US just weigh twice as much as normal, 2 to 3 times as much. That's the way it works. And like, this is just Kent telling us, like, I don't know how science works at like the most basic level. Because I don't know, Ben, have you ever done like statistical analysis on a data set?
No.
No. Okay. Well, I have, because I took various stats courses and whatnot, and we were given or had to collect data sets. Sometimes you get outliers. It just happens. And if you focus on the outliers, well, you're probably going to get the wrong answer. Pega Jace the Carbon 14 Mythicist for $5 says, now I want pizza too, and AIG is an Agbay of Ixday. Thank you very much, and we will take a drink for that. And then for I'll take the drink now. For another $5, Fits of Rage says, Zerulon and Tirirana are to me as Lyle and Jeanson are to Dapper Dinosaur. AIG is a bag of Slicky Nixons. I don't know what that says about Zerulon and Tirirana. Both of whom you can see on Top Hats Off, by the way, because we play Star Trek Adventures, was it first edition together. I have nothing against the second edition. I just don't currently own it, and I do not want to switch editions mid-campaign. Goopdo 3 for $2 sends pizza and a smiley heart emoji. Thank you very much. By the way, if you want to see Goopdo 3 on the channel, I have a Leaving Young Earth Creationism with him, so you can check that out afterwards. Leaving Young Earth Creationism, by the way, is a show that I used to do where I would just interview people who had left Young Earth Creationism and ask them about like what it was like being one, how they became one, who they followed, what made them leave, stuff like that. I stopped doing it basically because I got like a 5th person in a row who just completely flaked out, and I was like, all right, I'm done. So, if you are a former Young Earth Creationist and you really, really, really want to do one, I would be willing to have you email me about it, but do be aware that like I'm going to be pretty wary because so many people just flaked out completely. In fact, ghosted me. So yeah, got burned on that one a few too many times.
I mean, can you see how much fun a lawyer would have with this in a court of law?
No, Kent, because most lawyers aren't debating scientific topics, first of all, and also because the fact that you're too dumb to figure out what an outlier is, or that we can check for contamination or things like that, doesn't mean that actual expert witnesses would be that dumb.
Your Honor, he's guessing.
Hey, Bent. The question of whether or not creationism is science has come up a few times in court in the United States. Would you care to guess how many times the courts have sided with the creationists?
I don't think they have.
No, they haven't. It's the creationism has a 0% win streak, or if you will, a 100% loss streak when it actually comes to real court. So, also, Kent Hovind has a close to 0% win rate in court. He did actually manage to get a couple charges dismissed, and which I guess isn't a win. It's just that he didn't actually end up having to go to trial, but he did actually get a non-guilty verdict on, I believe it was mail tampering and intimidation, because he ended up getting one of his fans on the jury. So, yeah. So he doesn't have a 0% win rate, but like, it's pretty low. It's pretty low. And also, he tried to sue his son, Eric, in sovereign citizen court. And Eric did the right thing, which is to just say, completely ignore everything about that. Because it turns out that sovereign citizen court is just arbitration, and you have to agree to arbitration. Otherwise, it's not binding. So, and you don't have to agree to it normally. You can just say no. So yeah. But it is binding if you do agree before you go in, right? So, like if I wanted to sue Bent here, but it was going to be way too much money, and I was like, all right, let's have Maddie settle it, and we will both sign a contract saying that we agree to whatever Maddie says, and then we present our case to Maddie, and then she judges between us. That would be binding. Thylaco Leon Kennedy for $5 redo says, Toby Maguire voice, pizza time, with a pizza and a Carmen. Oh, we drink for the Carmen. Actually, if Bent gets pizza, then there's a very good chance that Carmen will also get pizza. Only a little bit, but she'll probably get it. So getting Bent pizza is also getting Carmen pizza. And then she'll use all those extra amylase genes that she has as a dog and not a wolf to digest all that starchy food. Thanks, evolution.
Yeah.
This would never hold up.
Except for the times that it indeed has held up in actual courts, Kent. Like, that's the thing. If you're going to tell me something's never going to work in court, you should probably check to see if it already has worked in court. You know? But then again, Kent Hovind isn't a lawyer, which we can tell by all the cases he's lost.
Okay. Basalt from Mount Kilauea.
Kilauea? Are you trying to say Kilauea, Kent? Okay, look, I get that it's not an English word, but like, if you're an American, which Kent is, it's a fairly famous place name, right? Isn't it? Like, Ben, you've heard of Kilauea, right?
I'm pretty sure I have.
Okay.
Although it has been a while.
I mean, I don't think I've been to Kilauea, but like, as far as locations in Hawaii goes, it's pretty up there in terms of fame.
They pronounce every vowel over there in Hawaii.
Yeah, that's why they're in the word. That's why you write them down, Kent. It's so that you can pronounce them. What? I'm sorry, Hawaiian isn't French, where you only say about 2/3 of the letters. I don't know what do I do with this? Swift Light has gifted 5 Dapper Dinosaur memberships. Thank you so much. I'm going to take 5 drinks while Bent tells you which building is best in Factorio.
It depends on what you want to do, but probably assembly machine number 3 is my favorite building because you can make things so much faster than you can in an assembly machine number 2 or number 1.
Well, given that you don't have space age and you don't have access to foundries, that's an acceptable answer. But the real answer is foundries.
I'm not sure what those are.
Oh, you take lava or other molten things like molten copper or molten iron, and you just make things directly out of the liquid. So like you can take lava and make liquid copper or liquid iron, and then you can take the liquid iron or the liquid copper in other foundries and just make iron plates, copper plates, iron rods, steel, copper wire, and low density structures if you take both of them in at the same time and then add some plastic.
Can you make copper magma?
I mean, arguably, molten copper just is copper magma. So does that convince you to get Space Age?
It's definitely helping push me towards that direction, but I don't know if it's enough.
You know, if you just brush up on your Lewis skills or whatever it is, you could probably make a mod that changes the name of molten copper to copper magma, and then the answer would just be yes.
I did make a mod for Factorial once.
Oh,
Or
there
I
you-
should say I edited an out-of-date mod to make it work.
There you go. Is it Lua? Is that the actual thing I'm thinking of?
That's what it was at the time, at least.
It probably still is.
Kila Uwiya Iki, something like that. However, since 1959 it erupted, gave a potassium argon age of 8.5 million years old.
Oh, there is another thing that happens with a lot of these creationist reports that I have not mentioned, which is also that creationists, and by the way, this is a creationist source since it's from Creation Ex Nihilo, December 1999, which means I'm pretty sure this is what's happening here, since this is a very, very old age. Creationists love to include what are called xenocrysts. And a xenocryst is a crystal that is embedded in an igneous rock, but that did not melt when the rest of the rock was molten, and so it did not have its radiometric age reset to 0 because it didn't melt, and so it didn't form in that lava flow. And the normal practice is to try to be as careful as possible to avoid including xenocrysts in your samples that you're going to send off to be aged. But creationists, when they actually publish their work, which usually requires things like, pictures of microscopic cross sections of what they're sampling and whatnot, they routinely include xenocrysts, which are known to push the age up because they are older. And so what you actually get is sort of an average between the xenocryst and the actual rock that you're trying to test. And it turns out that not every kind of mineral has the same melting temperature. And so if the temperature of the lava is significantly below the melting temperature of your crystal won't have its age reset, and you will find it in the younger lava. Dutch Tunicate Official for $2 says, Kilauea is not a hard word to say with a Ghidorah, and I agree, it is not a hard word to say. It's also a little bit weird that Kent has this in his slides and doesn't know how to pronounce it. Like, you could just look it up. DJ Sapsound, who's been a member for 26 months, says, someone said the Factorio word. Yeah, Factorio was fun. I was playing it earlier today. I think I have like 2,500 hours in that game. Although, to be fair, a lot of that is from letting it run overnight because I just wanted to stockpile resources. So I don't actually have 2,500 hours of sitting actively playing it. But I do have about that many hours of just letting it run. Well, and actively playing it put together. You know what I mean? Yeah. It is a shame about the creator. It's sort of a Minecraft situation. Great game. Kind of a POS creator. But like, I don't know. I spent $60 total, and like, I'm not giving him any extra money. I'm not signal boosting him. Do what you want with that. Kostia.com for $5 says, to be honest, I never knew how to say Kilauea, but I'm not citing in a talk to make a scientific claim. Should probably do the due diligence in that context. Exactly, right? It's the same thing with like when Kent admitted to not knowing what a dinosaur was. I'm not going to complain if Bent can't give me a formal scientific definition of dinosaurs. But Bent, when was the last time you pretended that you were an expert on dinosaurs?
I think never ago.
Yeah, never ago. Or maybe
Since a
when you
really
were like
long
6
time.
or something.
No, not even then.
Yeah, see? And that's the difference. You're not trying to educate people on, or miseducate people on this. And that's the same thing with like Kilauea, especially if you're not American. Because I don't expect people who aren't Americans to know a lot of the geographic names of places in America. And it's also, there's some places where like, I don't expect you to know it anyway. Like, no one's going to be able to pronounce like Gloucester or Worcester, right? Those are places in Massachusetts, which is famously ridiculous place names. Sapphire Plushy Sorcerer's Light for $2 says graphic design is Ken's passion with the Godzilla. Yeah, I'll take a drink to that Godzilla. Actually, I mentioned before we went on air that like I'm not sure why Kent chose like bisexual as the theme for his slides today, but it sure is a choice. Maybe Kent is trying to tell us something. And you know what? I do have good reason that I unfortunately cannot share to think that Kent has in fact topped his former IT guy. So yeah. I think Kent might. You know what? Maybe this is actually Kent's subtle hint to us. Maybe he's actually just so far in the closet that the most he can do is give us bisexual coloring for his slides, while he is stuck in a religious context that would ostracize him if he came out. He certainly would not be the first Christian pseudoscientific hate preacher to turn out to have had to have been gay or bi or something. Kent. Actually, I was going to say we will accept it if you're gay, or we'll accept you. Like, I'm not going to accept Kent. I don't care. Not because of his sexuality, but because of all the other things. So like, I don't care, Kent. Don't come out. Stay in the closet. Suffer. I don't care. IT Guru says, please don't talk about Kent topping people. Now I need a brain bleach. Sorry. To be fair, the reason that I have good reason to believe this is far worse than just that mental image by a substantial margin. So like, you are being spared from the worst of it, and do not pry into that. For $4.99, Isabella Tracer says, bisexual colors in the presentations? Kent's gone woke. It's true. Kent has gone woke. We should cancel Kent for going woke. It actually reminds me, at one point, I made an avatar just for a series of videos about like the ocean and Young Earth Creationist claims about the ocean. And I was just looking for like complementary colors for the lighting. And I wasn't even thinking about it, but I gave it the Hollywood style bisexual lighting. And then as I'm looking back at it, I was like, huh, I guess I did do the bisexual lighting. There you go. It's the Vendorian avatar, by the way. So if you go through my catalog and look for videos with, I think it's ICR talking about like ocean stuff, like ocean sediments and stuff like that. I'm a Vendorian, and I believe that's the set that I gave some bisexual lighting to. It turns out they're complementary colors, and they look good together. So, I don't know.
They know it's only 40. Mount Etna erupted again, 1964. New lava flow. Hey, let's check it again. Okay, 700,000 years old.
From ICR.org. Great. Which means that we're going to have the same problems as before. Using a technique that's useful on ages that are too old. So we're going to get a gigantic margin of error. And creationists, it's almost like they try to include xenochrist. Right? So like, I don't know what to tell you, Kent. Sorry, but like creationists have a long history of basically intentionally doing radiometric dating wrong, getting bad results, and then touting that as a reason to say that the technique doesn't work, right? It's like if you went to your bathroom scale and started jumping up and down and said, my scale is broken. It says I weigh between, 2 kilograms and 50 kilograms. It's because you're jumping on it. Don't do that. Just stand still. I was like, well, then it tells me I weigh a weight that I don't like. I would rather that my scale be broken. Okay, cool, but that doesn't mean that your scale is broken. I'm sorry.
Erupted again 1972, gave an age of 350,000 years old. New lava dome building inside Mount St. Helens. It erupted 1980. New lava oozed up. People thought it might blow again, and then it quit. Ran out of pressure. They said, wow, brand new lava, let's go check it. How old is it? Well, they tested it several different ways. The whole rock, the feldspar, different ways they did it. Stephen Austin works at ICR, does a great...
Hey, here's the cool thing about Steve Austin. This exact test is one where I've read his quote-unquote paper, and I've seen the xenochrists in his pictures with my own eyes. And Bent, would you care to guess what his response was when people said, "Hey, we think that you have xenocrysts in your samples, giving you anomalously old ages, especially in the case of pyroxene"?
I imagine he would just ignore that.
Oh no, he gave an answer.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
That's surprising.
it
What
was.
was his answer?
Oh, it was nuh-uh. No explanation. He was just like, "Nope,
Hmm.
no, I didn't." I mean,
So
I've
he
seen him
just
with
lied.
yeah, I've seen him with my own eyes, but he was just like, "Nope." Oh, okay, cool, cool. And also, one fun thing about the ages that are not anomalously old, like the whole rock and the feldspar and the amphibole, they're not anomalously old because they're actually within the margin of error. He's just wrong about the margin of error because he sent the samples to a laboratory that could not test samples that young because the equipment they had wasn't precise enough and the test chamber couldn't be sufficiently evacuated to get a good reading on samples this young, which was on their website. So
Reading is hard.
I'm taking a drink for citing Steve Austin on this. Um Gaucho El Gaucho El Anon. That's actually really good. Says, wait, Kent went to prison? How the mighty have fallen. I know about that. Yeah, he did go to prison. He spent was it about 9 years in prison for tax evasion and tax fraud. Yep. And he also went to jail more recently for his physical assault against his then. I mean, they called them each other husband and wife, and I'm not going to argue. His then wife, Cindy Lincoln. I say I'm not going to argue because they weren't legally married, but also, like I said last time, I am not one who thinks that like whether or not the government says that you have a particular relationship status is like should be the way that we as a as people think about it, right? Like if someone came to me and said, "Oh, I did this marriage ceremony and this is my wife or husband," and we didn't bother with the paperwork because like we don't care about the paperwork or whatever, I, I don't have a problem with saying that those two are married. Like whatever. But yeah, he spent time in jail for that. Not nearly long enough. I personally think that if you send your wife to the hospital, you should spend years and years and years in prison. But apparently, judges in Alabama, or at least that judge in Alabama, disagrees with me. Which, yeah, I think we should have. You know what? I'm not going to try to get political. I think there should be a way for us to say that there is some kind of consequence for giving absurdly light sentences. But I also think that there should be a whole lot of like prison reform. So like I don't know. I just don't think justice was done in that case. But hey,
job with this kind of thing. This is in the technical journal, Creation Ex Nihilo, technical.
for it to be a technical journal, it would have to have peer review. It didn't. And do you know how I know? It's because I've actually seen peer review of this article because a number of actual scientists have reviewed it because it's so popular among pseudoscientists. And it didn't pass peer review when it was actually reviewed by peers, which means that while this is intended to look like a peer review journal, it's not, right? It's like one of those predatory journals where basically they'll print anything if you give them enough money. Well, cool, but that's not actual peer review, right? It looks like a peer review journal. They have submission standards, but if they're just going to print anything that you pay them to, well, it's not real peer review. And the only difference between that and this is that for this, you have to have a certain particular conclusion for your paper, and that's one that supports a young Earth and special creation, if those are applicable. So, like, I don't know what to tell you, but peer review journals don't have conclusion requirements. That's one of the ways you can tell they're fake. Goop23 for $5 says he shouldn't have had. Sorry, he should have had his students stand in front of the xenocrysts for the picture. Yeah, like Andrew Snelling with his stress fractures that totally don't exist. Just don't check the actual USGS high definition pictures of the same formation. Yeah, that's one of those ones where I'm just like, I have yet to find any way that I can interpret Andrew Snelling doing that where it's not just a lie. And hey, if you're a creationist watching this and you think you have a way to say that that was not Andrew Snelling lying to me, and to the world in general, please let me know. Because I would much rather say that he's not a liar. But as near as I can tell, creationist geologists are some of the most obvious liars in creationism. A field that more or less requires you to lie. Or just be fantastically stupid. Or ignorant, I guess. I'll be nice. There's a lot of really ignorant young earth creationists. I was one. Bent was one.
Journal. It gave ages from 0.35, that would be million years, so that's 350,000, to 2.8 million.
Mm-hmm.
This is from the same rock.
Well, no, actually, if you look there were different rocks that were tested, or at least different minerals. And if I remember correctly, they were in fact from a bunch of rocks that he collected, so they weren't from the same rock, but they were from the same lava dome. So I guess at that point I'm being a little bit pedantic. I don't know. Like, Ben, what do you think? Does it matter if he says the same rock, meaning the same lava dome, or if it's like,
I mean, he is wrong.
yeah, okay.
Technically. I think he's trying to make a point and he's being a little too broad with it.
All right.
I think they don't know.
No, we do. We also know that Steve Austin is either incompetent and illiterate, or he's a liar. And fuck yeah, we just got to the 20 super chats, which means that I am going to read out a super chat. I'm going to start a new super chat goal, and then we are probably going to go on a quick break to do things like refresh drinks and whatnot. Joshua Geese for $5 says, also Snelling placing his students in front of them. Exactly. Yeah, that is extremely troublesome. I'll go with troublesome. All right, so let's set up the next goal. Thank you very much. So this one is going to be for 30 super chats. It's going to last for an hour, and it's going to be, I'll do an extra stream this weekend. So if you want to get more Dapper Dinosaur, send in 30 super chats within the next hour or so, and I will do an extra stream this weekend. And so, yeah, you can force me to work more. So, yeah, in the meantime, though, we are going to take a quick break, and please enjoy this teaser trailer for the next episode of Star Trek Endurance, my Star Trek Adventures First Edition actual play over on my second channel, Top Hats Off, featuring a number of people that you're familiar with if you hang around this channel, including Zerolon, who's in chat. So, yeah, see you on the other side of the break. Next time on Star Trek Endurance.
Captain's Log, Stardate 61287.07. We recently assisted the colonists of Stalis II by supplying a range of new excavation equipment, allowing them to greatly speed up their expansion underground. While demonstrating the new technology, a new type of mineral was discovered that displayed some unusual properties. We relayed our findings to Starfleet Command, who dispatched a science ship to Stalis II to conduct further tests. But before we had left the system, we received a distress call from the colony.
The colonists are acting erratically and violently. Has some environmental toxin affected them? Are they under the influence of the Telecol? Are the strange energies of the Shackleton Expanse causing this somehow? The crew will have to investigate, but while they do, they themselves risk falling prey to whatever sinister force is affecting the colonists of Stellus II. Can the crew of the Kong Z save not only the colonists, but also themselves? Find out next time, only on the Top Hats Off channel. And we are back. Thank you very much for sticking with me, everyone who has. I do have to say, though, that we have 110 people watching, but only 51 likes, which means that, unfortunately, I have to say that I like less than half of you, half as well as you deserve. So please make sure that you hit the like button so you don't get Bilbo'd again, because no one wants to be Bilbo'd, except maybe Frodo. I don't know. It's weird. Let's see. I also have to say that we're going to take a drink for Dapper's a Professional, because when I started the intermission, I had both videos playing at once, and I had to fix that. So that is my fault, and here's Dapper's a Professional. Looking, I don't see any other gifted memberships or super chats, so I don't think anything came in during the break. So the next thing is, real quick, guys, this channel is basically, no, not basically, this is how I am supporting myself. It's how I'm paying my bills. It's how I'm putting my kids through orphanage. So it is the reason that I can do, 3, sometimes 4, every once in a while, even 5 videos in a week, is because you guys support. And so if you are someone who wants to see me be able to continue to do this for the first, I'm sorry, for the foreseeable future, for as long as I possibly can, I don't have any plans to quit unless I have to, then please consider supporting. There are a few great ways to do that. There is the Patreon linked in the description. That's where I get to keep the most of what you send, so that's probably my my most preferred option. There's also the channel memberships. There's a join button right below this video. There's that's the same thing that you get when people gift memberships, except that this one you can do as a recurring charge if you want. Those both give you early access to videos. Right now, I'm about 5, coming up on 6 months ahead for early access. So, like, when I put out a video this month, it's not going to come out until like next year, right? So, like, that it's a lot of early access, and there are many hours of early access video available to you right in early access for both patrons and channel members. It also gives you access to my Discord server, which is a fun place where we have a lot of rooms for various things. We have an art show and tell type room for you to post your own art. We have rooms for like TTRPGs. Heck, I have a room specifically if you want to play a TTRPG in the server with other server members. There's a room for that. We have rooms for Star Trek discussion, Warhammer discussion, Power Rangers discussion. We have a room for Conlang discussion. It's a lot of cool stuff in there. It's a lot of fun. The Patreon starts at $1 a month. You can get a 15% discount if you go annual for your pledge. And the channel memberships start at $1.99. The channel memberships also get you the cool channel emojis, and your name will turn green, and you get a cool little badge after your name. So please consider those. There's also, I have 2 wish lists in the description. I have one that's my throne wish list, which has a bunch of stuff like books, some snacks, some costume type stuff. It's just stuff that's fun for me to have. And then there's also my Steam wish list, which is also in the description, where I have games that I'm keeping track of or that I would like to play. So there's that. There's also the merch store right below this video. You'll see a merch shelf. If nothing on there appeals to you, please do click through into the actual merch store, because there's more items in the merch store than I can actually just put on the merch shelf. Let's see. There's also rendering for me. This doesn't actually cost, well, I can't say it costs money, because it does cost a little bit of electricity, but it doesn't send me money. So the way that I get my animations done is I use a render farm called Sheepit. And the way Sheepit works is when people render my frames, it costs me points. The way I get points is by rendering frames for Sheepit. And you can render points as me with the instructions in the description. There's a section called How to Render for Me. You go to the website that's listed, you download the client that's appropriate for your operating system, and then it'll take up some of your GPU or CPU cycles. And basically what you do is you just run it when your computer would otherwise be idling. And then it won't be idling, and it will be getting me points. I think that covers all of that stuff. Do know that, again, we have a 30 super chat goal to get me to do an extra stream this weekend. So that would be 2 streams this weekend. And yeah, we also could get Bent Pizza, although we are pretty far from it. So if we want to get Bent, and to some degree Carmen, some pizza, then feel free. Also, remember, you can make me finish my drink by getting the queue of how many gifted memberships I have to drink for, up to 30 or higher. Okay, I think that's it. Bent, are you as ready as you're likely to be within the next few minutes?
I was born ready.
I don't believe you. I'm pretty sure if
Oh.
I showed up on your birthday the day you were actually born and I was like, Ben, are you ready to listen to Kent Hovind? You would just cry at me.
I would have cried. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
probably right.
Okay.
But
Be
I
my
would have
guess
cried
on
for
it.
a good reason.
That's true. That's true. Would be a good reason. Bent Needs a Slice says, my doctor is an alien. It's true. He does.
Right? So same thing, potassium argon, you date a rock of known age, it doesn't work. If you date a rock of unknown age and no other way to check it, it works.
Except that we do have ways to check it, and it does work. It just doesn't work when you're checking the wrong rock, or you're lying. Right?
It's ridiculous. And same things to consider for potassium argon dating. You don't know the decay rate, you don't know that's not been
We do know the decay rate.
contaminated, you don't know anything about it.
Yeah, we're going to take a drink about, especially you don't know the decay rate, because if you remember, Kent's complaint about how we don't know the decay rate was based on that no one sat around for an entire half-life to watch it decay that fast, which is not how rates work, right? Like, my example from last time was, you know, if a cop pulls you over for going, I don't know, like 150 kilometers per hour, you don't get to say, well, you didn't follow me for 150 kilometers over the course of an hour to see if that's how fast I was going. So it doesn't count. It doesn't matter. The cop doesn't care because you don't need to follow someone for 150 kilometers to see if it takes them an hour to go that far, to know that they were going 150 kilometers an hour when you clocked them with your radar gun. Let's see. My Infinite Journey for $2 says, hail Daps and Bent, and hail Sheepit. Hail indeed. Sheepit is pretty cool. It is a service that has done me well for many years now, and it has actually improved since I first started using it. Quite considerably, actually. So, I also now am actually known to the people who run it, because I've been there for so long, and I'm very high up in the ranks of like top renderers. I've been in the top 10 for ever. In fact, at one point I got as high as 3rd place.
Basically. Okay, fresh dinosaur bones. Have they been found?
I mean, in my kitchen sometimes, yeah. You know, like when I get like bone-in chicken thighs or something. Or if I buy a whole turkey, which I've been known to do from time to time, basically once a year. Because when else would I want a whole turkey?
I get people say about, oh, Hovind, you're lying, they never found any fresh dinosaur bones. Well, in the book, The Great Alaskan Dinosaur Adventure, published by Master Books.
Okay, so not in any peer-reviewed journal, it's just some book. Bent, did you know that you can just publish a book and like no one can really stop you? In fact, today it's even easier.
I did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that there are a lot of books that are full of absolute nonsense. Did you know that too?
Yes, I am aware of that. It is it's pretty easy just to write. I mean, if you are a writer, I guess, but like you can just write a book. Anyone could just do it.
Yeah. And then it's just a book now. So that it's in a book means nothing other than that it is in a book.
800-999-3777.
Is that the number for Master Books? Are you asking us to call the publisher, Kent? What is wrong with Kent? Excuse me, receptionist at Master Books. I have a question about this one title from like the 80s or whatever. Could you please explain it to me? What response do you think you're going to get if you call that number that would in any way verify this? I'm taking a drink. This is oh my god. At least when he's handing out people's personal numbers, it's usually the people who actually saw the thing that he's talking about or claim to see the thing he's talking about. So you could ask him about like, hey, I want to ask you about that time that you said you saw Bigfoot. Okay, cool. At least then you could talk about it. What do you think you're going to get at the corporate number for Master Books? I just... Bent, you've done citations in academic writing before. Was the phone number for the publisher ever part of the citation?
No, there was never. I've never cited a phone number, and I never would.
Cool. How does he? I want to some degree to understand why Ken thinks that this is a good idea. Like, what about the idea of giving me the 800 number to the Master Books Publishing Company in any way enhances this slide? I guess I don't think I'll ever know. I guess I could call him, but he won't say anything coherent, so it doesn't matter.
They've now changed their name to New Leaf Press, and Master Books is a part of New Leaf Press. This is in Arkansas. This book tells the whole story about how they collected unfossilized dinosaur bones. They had not fossilized yet in Alaska.
You don't know what it means for something to fossilize. It usually means that something is permineralized. But here's a few things. One, I have not actually ever seen this claim put anywhere where it's actually verifiable, right? Because when you publish paleontology work, one of the prerequisites is usually that the fossil you're publishing about be available to the public for future study, right? So that usually means that it's either in a public museum, like a publicly owned museum, so that, you know, other scholars can go check, or it's on more or less permanent loan from a private collection. And even then, it can be hard to get those published because, like, are they actually available for study? Only on the whim of the owner. So those are actually hard to publish, which means that generally speaking, if a fossil is published on and someone doesn't buy it, they can go check. But I've never seen any such publication on any of these so-called unfossilized dinosaur bones from Alaska, even though Ian Juby also makes this claim. Yes, the same Ian Juby who thought, or who apparently still thinks, as far as I can tell, that unless the reproductive tract of a female animal and the intermittent organ of a male animal are exactly the same size and shape, that it's just reproduction is completely impossible. This despite the fact that humans, the species to which Ian Juby exists or belongs, have differently sized and shaped intermittent organs and birth canals, and yet it doesn't fit is basically never the reason for infertility in human couples. I'm not gonna say never, but it's pretty much never, right? It's usually not. Well, it just doesn't fit. Yeah, that Ian Juby is the other major proponent of this that I can tell. My unfinished stock for $5 says, "Don't do radiometric dating wrong on purpose. Like and share the stream instead." And I agree. That is a much better option. Oh, I forgot the 20 cents that's on there. That makes a big difference. It takes us from 19 to 20% on the counter. So yeah, I would love to actually see any of this published in a place where, like, it's actually verifiable that this is true, but I never have.
Frozen bones. Some were petrified, some were lightweight. Journal of Science, December 24th, Christmas Eve, 1993, reported on the amazing preservation of the bones of a young duck-billed dinosaur found in Montana. Under a microscope, the fine structure of the bones was seen to have been preserved to such an extent that cell characteristics could be compared with cells of chicken bone.
Notice that doesn't say it was unfossilized. It just says it was well preserved, which means that it probably was permineralized, because that's what that usually means. So I'm just going to take a drink for Kent giving us his own Trojan source. Weird. But yeah, sometimes permineralization can recur with unusual detail. It's cool, but, like, it doesn't make science fake.
Finely preserved dinosaur bone. In northwestern Alaska, 1961, a geologist found a bed of dinosaur bones in unpermineralized. That means they weren't fossilized.
I am interested here because that is an actual journal, as far as I can tell. So let's actually check up on this. Let's see what we got here. All right, so we've got Journal of Paleontology, volume 61, number 6. Let's see. Let's just see what comes up when I check for that. Journal of Paleontology, volume 61, issue 6, Cambridge Core. Let's see. Cretaceous gastropods, contrast between Tethys and temperate provinces. Well, that's not going to be Alaska, because that's not anywhere near the Tethys. Rutichnus, a new ichnogenus of branched-walled Meniscate trace fossil. That's not it, because it's a trace fossil. Campanian calcareous nanofossil Bucuraster Hayi, ultra microstructure and geological distribution in Israel. So nope. Let's see. The Landovery. That's New Brunswick, so it's still no. The identity of Conitas falklandius brachiopod from the Devonian, so no. Let's see, 1 second. We got a super chat here. My Doctor's an Alien for $4.99 says, for Dapper's drinks on the weekend stream, Big Kaiju. You know what? I will accept the Big Kaiju because you actually went to the trouble of like putting the macron over the U and like whatnot. And so, you know, cheers. All right, let me update the counter. Let's see. New species of brachiopod. No. Taxonomic revision of hyoliths. So no, not because it's not a dinosaur. New large gastropod. No. Ultrastructure from a... Oh, no. Yeah, no, that's a worm. And it's also in Antarctica. That's Permian, so it's not a dinosaur. Let's see. Crinoid. Nope. Eocrinoid. Nope. Holographic contouring of fossil teeth. I don't even know what that means, but like I doubt it. A method developed to use holographic interferometry to generate contour maps of occlusional surfaces of fossil teeth. So not even bone. So not that. Although that does sound super cool. Let's see. Dinosaur gastroliths revisited. Nope. Rodents. Nope. Another mammal. It's actually a cat. So no. Oh, it's actually a saber-toothed cat. That's neat. Let's see. First recognition of Devonian. Nope. Devonian. Nope. I'm just going through all of the articles in this. Molluscan fauna. Nope. Repository of Ripley foraminifera. So no. Nothing in this. Oh wait, no. There's a second page. Hold on. Phoraracoid. So that's a dinosaur, but it's also like a bird from the Cenozoic. So no. Status of... Oh, nope. That's a horseshoe crab. Let's see. Fossil invertebrates. Nope. Format for submittal. So no, that's just like editing stuff. Let's see. Official names and indices. Nope. Policy on illustrations. Nope. Author index. Nope. Just credit for the art, cover art, and cover for the other art credit. So no. Nothing in there seems to be this. So Kent, I think you lied. Because I just checked every single article in there, and none of them could possibly be a description of a dinosaur bone from Alaska. Most of them weren't even dinosaurs, which, I mean, to be fair, that's most of paleontology. So, no. Sorry. I'm just going to take a drink, because, I mean, I checked the source. Also, normally, this is a, Journal of Paleontology, valid source to check. But normally, when you cite a paper from a journal, you cite the name of the paper and the authors. Ben, you can confirm, right? You've cited papers before.
I have done that, yes.
Did you have to cite...
And I've done a good job citing.
Did you have to at least cite the first author and the title of the paper?
As far as I can remember, yes. It's been a while.
Yep.
But you have to make it pretty clear what you're citing.
Yep. And
can't just use a phone number.
Yeah, you also can't just use page numbers because, like, most people aren't going to have that edition just handy. Mike PhD said, but it's definitely not that issue then. Yeah, it could be that he's just giving me the wrong issue. Like, that's perfectly possible. But it still means that he's lying about the citation. Or at the very least, he's too stupid to actually get the citation right. And what's actually probably happening is that he's not the one who's actually getting the citation wrong. He's lying about having read the paper because he actually probably got it from one of those lists of citations that you can use as a creationist to debunk evolution. Because I want to remind everyone, like I do fairly frequently, creationists have published books that are just full of quote mines for other people to dishonestly snatch from that book rather than going to the original source. All right. Tesla Ranger New York says, Dr. et al. Writes a lot of papers. So does Ibid. That Ibid, man, just prolific. I've actually seen papers like for college students that cite a source as just like Ibid. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Don't do that. Don't cite Ibid.
1961, a geologist found a bed of dinosaur bones in unpermineralized. That means they weren't fossilized.
I mean, it would be cool if they did, but your citation doesn't have that in it, as far as I can tell, Kent. So, like, I don't know what you want from me. Well, I mean, I do know what you want from me. You want me to say the sinner's prayer and to therefore be saved for forever, I guess, which is how Kent's theology works. Which, by the way, is not how Christian theology has worked for most of history for most Christians, but, like, whatever.
How can the bone not fossilize in millions of years?
Well, it's unlikely, but also bones are made of hydroxyapatite. And Bent, hydroxyapatite, stone or not a stone?
Not a stone. Stone.
There you go. There you go.
I knew I would get it right at some point.
So yeah, part of it is just that your bone is already a rock. Like, it just already is mineral. So, like, I don't know.
Inuit Canadian Eskimo was working with scientists from Newfoundland's Memorial University, 1986.
By the way, yes, Eskimo is generally considered a slur in most circles today. So, not ideal, but we're going to move past it since I don't have anything to say other than, like, maybe don't use that word.
On Bylot Island, he found a part of a lower jaw of a duck-billed dinosaur. It too was in fresh condition, had not fossilized.
According to bigpond.com, which is where I get all my science information. It's bigpond.com.
This picture shows a dinosaur supposedly with a heart in it.
So I am familiar with this one. That was allegedly a heart. It turns out it wasn't. It was a concretion. And yeah. But also, even if it were a heart, it was a permineralized structure. So calling it fresh is like a pretty big stretch. I don't know. Ben, if you went to the grocery store and you went to buy some meat, well, maybe not heart meat, but like maybe just some other muscle, right? And what you got was a rock in the shape of meat. Would you consider that fresh?
No, I would be disappointed.
Yeah, you'd probably demand a refund.
I wouldn't pay for that.
No.
There's no way.
Yeah.
It's rare for soft tissue to fossilize.
That's true.
Okay, but it
Take a
can.
drink.
Usually only bones fossilize. Soft tissue can fossilize. This is from Time Magazine.
Usually it's only hard parts, which includes things like shells, not just bone. But overall, Kent is right. Soft tissue rarely fossilizes. It also includes teeth, which are not bone. But, you know, Kent thinks they are bones, though. He doesn't know the difference between a tooth and a bone. In case you're wondering, because I wouldn't expect everyone to know the difference, because most of you aren't pretending to be science teachers, bone is made of hydroxyapatite, whereas tooth is made of pulp covered in dentin, covered in enamel, all of which are different chemical composites. And the pulp itself is actually like fully innervated and has a blood supply, because teeth, as it turns out, evolved from sensory structures that were on the epidermis of early vertebrates. And that's why toothaches hurt so much. It's because your tooth is full of nerves, because it didn't evolve as a chompy bit. It evolved as a sensory organ, which then later turned into armor, which then later turned into chompy bits. So the fact that toothaches are so horrible is literally just an accident of evolution. So, yeah.
Magazine for kids. This picture. April 27th of the year 2000. Scientists say they found a dinosaur heart. So then they went further and said, wow, it's a 4-chambered heart. How are you going to tell that?
Well, you tell that by looking at how many lumps basically there are on it, the same way you would with anything else. Like if I gave you a statue, a highly accurate statue of a human heart and a lizard heart and a fish heart, by fish, I mean like a teleost fish, you could tell how many chambers that each one had if you're familiar enough with anatomy. So basically what Kent is doing here is telling on himself that he does not know enough about anatomy to be able to count the chambers of a heart from the exterior of the heart. But also, it wasn't a heart.
Things are rock, okay? They did x-rays and CAT scans and said it's 4-chambered. The argument has always been, if birds turned to dinosaurs, I mean, dinosaurs turned to birds.
Mm-hmm.
Most reptiles have a 3-chambered heart.
But not the crocodilians, the other archosaurs, who in fact do have a 4-chambered heart, although they bypass one of them, and only 3 of them actually work to pump blood. But they've got that 4th chamber, which, like, it's a little weird that God would just create crocodilians with a useless heart chamber that they bypass. Kind of odd, right? Be sort of like if you were designing a house, like you were an architect, and you built a whole living room area, but then you were like, but I'm going to put walls through it so that you can't access most of it, and it just becomes a hallway with no doors. Like, that'd be dumb. I would fire that architect. So, you know, Kent, if you have an explanation as to why crocodilians have 4 hearts, just like birds, who are their closest relatives among the reptiles, please let me know.
Birds have a 4-chambered heart. Blood circulation is totally different in those 2 types of hearts. Okay? On the human body, the blood comes into your heart from the body, which has used up all the oxygen. They call it blue blood. Okay? Or it's not really blue, but it's bluer.
I mean, he is right that it's not really blue, so we'll take a drink because I'm thirsty. This is that part of the stream where we start to get kind of generous with Kent being right about things, because I'm just kind of thirsty.
Then it goes to a 2nd chamber, which pumps it out to the lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Gets oxygen. Comes back into a 3rd chamber to receive it from the lungs.
Mm-hmm.
Puts it over to the 4th chamber, which pumps it back out to the body.
Hey, you got
You
that
have 4
right.
parts to your heart. That's why you hear your heart beat. Boom, 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 boom. That's the different valves opening and closing, you know, moving the blood around. Okay, who cares? Reptiles have a 3-chambered heart, most of them. Birds have 4. With a 3-chambered heart, the blood comes in and it gets mixed, half of it from the lungs and half of it from the body. So it's always only half oxygenated, which is why reptiles are a little slow, you know, when it gets cold. One of many reasons why they're a little slow when it gets cold.
You know what? Kent is basically right. It's a little bit more complicated than that about how the complex stuff is, but like, yeah, Kent is basically right. Now, also, Fear Monger has found a link to the article, allegedly. So let's see what we got here. All right. Duck-billed dinosaurs, Hadrosauridae ornithischia from the North Slope of Alaska. Ooh. All right. Hadrosaur, so this is from... Oh, okay, so this is from volume 61, number 1, and not number 6. So, yep, that was the problem there. Kent cited the wrong issue. That's fun. But everything else that he cited does look to be about the right. Let's see. So let's read some of this. Hadrosaur bones have been found on the Colville River of North Umiat on the north slope of Alaska. This find represents the first report of dinosaur bones in Alaska and their northernmost report occurrence. Well, certainly not the last dinosaur bones. Their remains are not determinable below family level, but are important nonetheless for interpretations of the paleoclimatology and paleobiography of the late Cretaceous. Besides the bone fragments, reports of Alaskan Mesozoic vertebrates are scarce. Known finds are Triassic Shublik Formation, the coelacanth fish, the paleoniscoid fish, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Some ichthyosaurs, Jurassic Naknek Formation, plesiosaur fragments, Lower Cretaceous, Nanush. Let's see, real quick. Carrie Bronson, who's been a member for 61 months and is at the annual level, says, missed the message last month, but it's been a great 5 years being here. That is so awesome. Thank you so much, Carrie Bronson. It really means a lot that you've been a member for so long. Let's see. Footprints, blah, blah, blah. It's just a list of other things. The Hadrosaur bones were collected in 1961 by the late R.L. Liscombe. While working for Shell Oil Company, research upon the Colville River led to the bones being sent to the U.S. Geological Survey in Menlo Park, where they were tentatively identified as Hadrosaurian. By C. Repenning, he sent the bones to the Texas Memorial Museum. For further investigation, the Shell Oil Company was kind enough to donate the bones to the TMM for safekeeping. Thanks, Shell. The bones were found on the Colville River at approximately 70 degrees north. Blah, 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 blah. Float, plane, helicopter, common means of transportation. Great. The site occurs in what was mapped. Great, great, great. Shell. Let's see. Would Datum allowed to import someone contaminated samples and establish restricting or possibly Campanian stage? Okay, the bone bed indicates shallow marine environment. Nothing about this is saying that they weren't permineralized. All right, Shell Oil Company's stratigraphic section of the locality shows the fossil bones come from a thin sandstone of pre-gubic silty sands. Matrix soil adhering to the bones is a soft brown sandy silt. The bones cataloged as TMM number apparently represent a quick surface collection by Liscum and consistent fragments of limb bones, ribs, and vertebrae. The quality of preservation is remarkable. The bones are stained a dark red brown, but otherwise display little permineralization, so not unpermineralized. Crushing or distortion. Now okay, well, hey, fun fact, that's a Trojan source, Kent. They weren't unpermineralized, they were only partially permineralized. Which is cool, but it's not the same thing as being fresh. Like, hey Ben, let's say that we revise our example, and your steak that you buy at the grocery store isn't just a big rock, but it's like 10% rock. Would you still demand your money back?
Yeah, I don't think that's good enough.
Yeah,
I want it to be 0% rock.
0? That is such a high bar.
Yeah.
Are you like not even?
I know, I'm picky.
Not even like 2% rock?
Nope.
Oh man, you would hate ancient Egyptian bread because it was definitely not 0% rock.
That's a shame.
Yeah, there's a reason that ancient Egyptians had horrible tooth problems. In fact, many of them died as a result of infections from tooth decay. Yeah, so their bread making techniques were not very good at excluding sand from the bread. So as they were chomping down on bread, sometimes just bits of quartz crystal would just scrape against their teeth. And your enamel is hard, but quartz is harder.
And they don't have the energy for long distance high.
Oh, see what Mike PhD 42 pointed out. Oh, here we go. Big thing: unpermineralized does not mean the bone structure hasn't fossilized. It means that the pore spaces hadn't had mineral filling through the infiltration. I know that, but I didn't even think about it, and that's a good point. I'm going to take a drink for that because that's an even worse version of this. Yeah. You know what? I need to brush up on my taphonomy. I've forgotten too many things. Does anyone know of a good taphonomy course that I can audit? I don't even know where you would go do that. But I do need to brush up on my taphonomy. I've forgotten too much taphonomy. By the way, taphonomy is the study of how things fossilize. So there you go. That's what that is. I realize I'm using this word, and it's not a common knowledge word, so I got to define it. Because one thing that I've kind of taken to heart is, when it comes to YouTube, assume that your audience is really smart, but also that they don't know the words. Define the words for them, but assume that they're smart. So that's what I like to do. I don't always live up to that ideal, but yeah, I try to. Okay, here we go.
Speed chases because they would run out of oxygen in their tissue. Whereas a mammal with greater oxygen in their blood has, different long-term endurance kind of stuff. Birds have to fly, which takes a lot of oxygen. They couldn't do it with a 3-chambered heart because that system simply wouldn't supply enough. Okay. Next week we'll take up with some more questions and try to get as far as we can on our frequently asked questions section. So we'll see you then.
Well, that's that video. Let's take. Why is it doing stupid things? Whatever. That's not my fault. That's the programs. Danielle OS for $5 says, I'm too tired to think of a joke. Well, that is okay. I was super tired yesterday. I only slept for about 3 hours night before last. It was rough. I went to bed at a normal time, and then I woke up at like 2:30, and like I just was like not falling back asleep. So then I tuned into Manya's live stream. About it was about someone named Claire. It's not terribly important, but if you want, it's on Chesh's channel. And then I was just up for the rest of the day, and I don't think I went back to bed until like 8 p.m. and then I didn't actually go to sleep until like after 10. So I get not being able to think of a joke because you're too tired, because that was me basically all of yesterday. Let's see. I do need to pull up the next video though, and I am totally not just continuing to talk while I fill dead air, because that's what I'm doing. That is certainly not what's going on here. So let me size this correctly, and then I will share with Bent. Okay. Give me a second while I share with Bent. Let's see. I'm going to share my screen, Bent, and you're going to see the other video. Let me know if you can see it.
I see it.
All right, so this is the sequel, effectively. So here we go.
All right, welcome to Class 7 of our CSE.
Wait, no, this is the same one. Did I download the wrong one? Oh, no, Dapper's a
Oh
professional.
no. Uh-oh.
Well, what is it? What does this mean? Oh, wait, no, I have it in a different... I have it in a different folder. This is the one we were just watching. Or... Where did it go? I know I had it. Let's see. What? I saw it earlier today, and now apparently I don't have it. This is upsetting. Mostly for me, because I screwed this up royally.
Oh no.
All right. Bent,
Yeah.
how was your day today?
Oh, I had a pretty good day today.
Okay.
I slept in, and then I woke up, and I watched some Twitch,
Okay.
and then I took a nap,
Nice.
and then I woke up and I watched more Twitch and a
Okay.
little bit of YouTube.
How much is a little bit of YouTube?
Like an hour or less. I think less.
That's not very much YouTube. That's less time than we've been on YouTube.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
And I think I only ate breakfast. I don't think I've had anything to eat since then. So I could really go for some pizza.
I'm surprised you even had something for breakfast.
I know.
I certainly didn't give you that food. Have you been stealing my food?
I'd like to talk about something else, please.
You didn't eat one of the dogs, did you? They're both still alive?
They're still alive, I'm pretty sure.
All right, but you didn't do like the
Over the
Twitch
last time I checked.
where you take like a little slider out of the dog while leaving it alive, like he did with his horses?
No, I would never do that.
Okay,
I mean, maybe I would do that, but probably not.
maybe with like a horse or something.
It'll all be goat.
Wait, you have a goat?
It would be.
Man, I could go for some goat.
Yeah, the last time I had goat, it was full of sharp bones.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
How about the last time you had lamb? Was it my Cinco de Easter lamb tacos that I made?
I think it was. Yeah, those are pretty good.
Those were really good. That was one of the best meals I've ever made, in my opinion. All right, I'm going to share with you the correct video. So, here we go. This is actually class 8. So we're back, everybody. Sorry about that. We're also not going to get very far into this. We did drink for Dapper's a Professional on that one, so my bad. I swear I was convinced that I already had this, but I guess not.
All right, well, welcome to class number 8. We have 2 more after this, and we are going to try to finish up. At the rate we're going, we will not make it, but we shall hurry. We're taking our questions and answers, frequently asked questions, things that come up in our seminar. People say, well, if the dinosaurs lived only a few thousand years ago, or some are still alive, do we ever find any fresh dinosaur bones that are not fossilized?
We just went over that.
Yes, some have been found. If you get the book, The Great Alaskan Dinosaur Adventure by Buddy Davis, who works some with Ken Ham up in Cincinnati area.
Buddy Davis, is that who wrote that? Oh my God, that guy has all sorts of horrible nonsense content. He has this whole like kids show that's like paleontology themed, and there's a dinosaur character, and then he just says a bunch of lies to kids on his kids show. I don't know what category this falls into, but I'm taking a drink for Buddy Davis. My God. That is a name I have not thought of in a very long time.
Great ministry there called Answers in Genesis. He's got a book called The Great Alaskan Dinosaur Adventure. On page
Hey, what do we think about Answers in Genesis, Bent?
I think they're a bag of dicks.
There you go. Fuck those guys.
Page 87, it tells about them when they went to Alaska and found dinosaur bones that were frozen back into the, digging back into the bank of the riverbed. Journal of Science, December 24th, 93, report the amazing preservation of the bones of a young duck-billed dinosaur found in Montana. Under microscope, the fine structure of the bones was seen to have been preserved bones in unfossilized. Working with scientists from Newfoundland's article in Time magazine for kids on page 7 of April 27th.
Is Kent quoting a literal article for babies as his source?
It seems like it.
Jeez, I'm taking another drink. I can't with this man right now. My goodness. Yeah, he does. Fear Uckfice Monger says, don't forget, he keeps reconstructing T-Rex as a shrink rat monstrosity with broken wrists. Yeah, like it's the 70s or something.
7th, year 2000. Shows the kids that they found a dinosaur.
We saw that too, Kent.
Yes, it's a heart, and yes, it's a 4-chambered heart.
No, it's not.
Well, now, hold on. Demonstrated conclusively that it was, except to those who really want to believe that dinosaurs turned to birds. Since birds have 4 parts to their heart, almost all reptiles have 3-chambered heart. We talked about that before.
Hey, Kent, what's that almost part? What do you mean almost?
It implies that there are exceptions.
Huh. And if there are exceptions to the rule that reptiles have 3-chambered hearts, could it not be that among the exceptions could be the dinosaurs?
It's possible.
Huh. Weird. Mike, PhD 42, says mail-order degrees from fake diploma mills like Patriot Bible University ought to be grounds for a false advertisement lawsuit against people like Kent who call themselves doctor. No, I cannot disagree with you there. That does, in fact, seem reasonable. Yeah, in fact, actually, if people do have early access, my most recent video series, the one that I'm working on right now, is Carl Bogg giving a talk at something called Charis Bible College, which is an unaccredited Christian Bible college. And what that means is it is not quite a diploma mill, because it does seem like they make their kids, like, or their students actually work. But, like, what you get at the end isn't a diploma. You didn't get a degree. You got a certificate from people who aren't authorized to give out degrees. And that means nothing. And so in that, I tell anyone who's listening who might either be thinking of sending a child to Charis Bible College, or who might be, in fact, a student or prospective student, don't do that. You will give them large sums of money and you will get less than nothing out of it. Because in addition to not actually getting a degree out of the whole thing, you will be misinformed. And the way I can tell is that they had Carl Baugh as a speaker like last year. Fear Uckfeismonger says, I make a case for this to be an ad hominem for Kent making a conclusion about entire clade based on a lack of evidence in a small part of the clade. Unfortunately, it's not about hominids, though, so that doesn't quite count.
Blood circulation through the lungs and everything is totally different in those types of animals. How it could possibly survive a transition from 3 to 4, nobody's ever demonstrated that. It's just pure theoretical. Okay.
Kent, that is, in fact, what we call in the biz an argument from ignorance. That you don't know how a thing occurred doesn't mean that it didn't occur, right? Like, I don't know how it is that, say, fish becomes flakier when you soak it in lye. But from what I've seen with, like, the existence of lutefisk, apparently it does. Do I understand it? No. Does that make it fake? No. Am I going to check into it? Also, no. Although, also, any of those YouTube channels where you see people eating it and they just take it out of the can and just pop it in their mouths, that's not how you're supposed to eat it. You're supposed to rinse it and soak it a bit and get, and then you can eat it. So, like, if people tell you that a food is really gross, check to see if they're eating it right. Reminds me of an article that I saw or read about, like, foods that some people like but that are really gross. And one of the entries was like spam, and they were like, even people who enjoy spam say that you have to cook it. Like, yeah, that's just most foods. The fact that you can eat it right out of the can doesn't mean that that's the best way to eat it. That's just true for most things. It's also true for like the canned chili I have sometimes. I'm not just gonna pop open the can and eat it directly out of the can. I'm gonna heat it first. Anyway, random rant about food because I haven't done that in a little while.
Here's a good question I got one time. If there really was a flood, where are all the human bones?
Now, that actually is a really good question, right? Because humans live in relatively low elevation places and they're not particularly fast, which means that according to both the ecological zonation and the whole like some animals just run fast uphill explanations for where the fossils are found, humans should be found in with like the dinosaurs, roughly. And yet they aren't.
Good question. All right, here's my answer to that one.
Petite Flower says that they don't enjoy spam. They've tried. Hey, that's fine. I'm not asking people to enjoy spam. I enjoy spam, but I do crisp it up in a pan first. I usually either put a very low amount of oil or I'll just put it on the pan dry because, well, the spam's going to cook off a bit of the pork fat that's in it. And that is usually actually more than enough for it to be like reasonably well lubricated, as long as your pan is not particularly sticky. If you have a pan that loves to have food stick to it, then put a little bit of like oil in it first. But yeah, I definitely crisp my ham up, or start my spam up.
Marvin Lubenow, who wrote the book Bones of Contention, excellent book, by the way, we have it in our bookstore. He said there have been about 4,000 human remains found. Some are very, very fragmentary, just a few.
Does that mean the remains of that many people or that many individual bones? Like, that is a very confusing way to phrase that.
Small pieces, some very complete skeletons. Trillions of fish fossils are found, probably billions of plant fossils.
Mike PhD 42 has basically just described exactly what I do with spam. Slice the spam thin, fry it well, it supplies its own fats. Yep. Set aside and then used as a topping for homemade ramen. Spam fat also helps the tare. Yeah. There you go. And then Zerolon says, cube your spam small, fry it, then add it to Kraft mac and cheese. Another good way to do spam.
That's what
like-
I did.
Yeah.
I used to do that back when I was allowed to eat food.
Yeah. Back before it became pizza or nothing.
Are found, and yet only about 4,000 human fossils. Why? Well, when God created the world 6,000 years ago, it was full of plants and full of animals, but only 2 people.
Okay.
God didn't make 2 chickens. He made a world full of animals, which
You don't have a way to say that. The Bible doesn't say that. Nothing in the Bible indicates how many of each quote-unquote kind God made initially. That's just a guess. It could have been 2. We don't know.
would include probably millions of chickens and millions of cows, and all the animals were made.
I like how he picks domesticated animals and not the actual wild animals that would actually need to be made. So like it would have been like jungle fowl and like aurochs or something that God would have made, because chickens and cows were made by people. People took wild animals and turned them into our domesticated chickens and cows. And I'm just going to take a drink for like Kent not knowing what domestication is. Mike PhD 42 says standard issue academic, not starving, just broke. Yep. Oh, and Mike PhD also has a good bunch of craft dinner to go through. Ooh, I should just order like for delivery just a big box full of like Kraft mac and cheese, which is what craft dinner is called in the United States. Because in case you're wondering, craft dinner is basically what that product is labeled as in Canada, whereas Kraft mac and cheese is what it's labeled as in the US. They're essentially the same product. I think there might be some differences in like food dyes or whatever as a result of different food regulations, but fundamentally, they're both boxes of macaroni and, dehydrated cheese powder from the Kraft Food Company, which, if I remember correctly, is owned by Philip Morris. So that's a fun thing.
But only 2 people were made. So when Adam and Eve were standing there in the garden, it's full of trees and full of animals, but they're the only 2 people. Okay. 1,600 years later, we have a big flood, kills everybody, drowns everything. The world is still full of plants and animals, but still not full of people.
Okay. But Kent, presumably between the creation and the flood, people kept reproducing. And I say that that's presumable because, well, it's actually stated in the text that people had, kids because it's like you get a genealogy, right? And also, I happen to be familiar with humans. And if there's one thing that I can say about humans, it's that by and large, humans are horny. And when humans do things as a result of horniness, it sometimes results in pregnancy. And then often pregnancy results in the birth of a baby. And that's where new adult humans come from. So that there were 2 humans at one point, and then later on 8 humans, is not a good explanation for this, because there's a presumable period of time when the population keeps going up. And we can also say it keeps going up because the flood story said that God killed all the people, which didn't include Noah and his family, which means there had to have been other people before the flood, which means the population had to have gone up. So like, what we got to talk about those guys.
Population grew to who knows what. Okay, this is my chart,
that's
just
the
guessing. There may have been 1 billion people. It might have been...
1 billion is a lot, Kent. There was only like 1 billion people. You wouldn't expect there to be a fossil. I might actually. I might. Especially since I don't think there was ever a single time when there was, say, 1 billion Tyrannosaurus Rex at a single time. And yet we have lots of their fossils. And Kent thinks that all those fossils were created within 1 year, which means they would have all been alive at the same time. Which means they're a much smaller population. And even if we say, like, okay, T-Rex is really easy to fossilize because it's such a big, heavy animal. Okay, sure. But we have the fossils of other animals alive at the time, like Rapenomamus, which was way, way smaller. And that's a little earlier than T-Rex, if I remember correctly. But, like, still, not according to Kent. And it's smaller, and it's living in the same kinds of environments. So, like, yeah, where are all the human fossils, Kent?
Lots less, it might have been lots more. There's absolutely no way to tell that I can figure out. They probably had huge families, 100 or 200 children per family. No reason not to when you have infinite food supply.
I can think of a few reasons not to have 200 children, Kent. That doesn't involve, like, how would I feed them? How about, how would you maintain a relationship with that many children? Like, adult humans generally cannot maintain meaningful relationships with 200 people, and I'm just realizing that the reason that doesn't occur to Kent is because he doesn't actually maintain emotionally meaningful relationships with his own children. And that made me upset. I'm gonna take a drink. Fuck. Remember, Kent's response to the idea of the death of a child is you can always make more. Sometimes I forget what a gigantic piece of shit this fucker is, right?
Yeah, he's pretty bad, to say the least.
Jeez. Well, great. Now I'm sad. Fucking hell, Kent. What a...
And you got the whole world. You know, matter of fact, it'd be an advantage to have a huge family to help, you know, do the chores. But
Kent, huge is like 20. We're just gonna go past this because I don't want to keep thinking about the way that Kent Hovind treats his kids and has treated them in the past.
the lifespans before the flood were over 900 years. And during this time, probably had huge families and maybe a population of 1 billion, I don't know. But the purpose of the flood was to destroy man from off the earth. It says so.
You know, we could do the calculation, right? So it's 2,000 years between, I think it's actually supposed to be closer to 2,500. We'll just call, 2,500. But we'll call it 2,000 years, right? Between Adam and Eve and the flood. So what we'll do is so basically, if you just do the unrestricted population growth curve, it comes out as the same calculation as the compound interest calculator or calculation, right? So we start with an initial investment of 1, and then we have let's see, a monthly contribution of, oh, this is the wrong compound interest calculator. Boo! I'll just pull up an actual like Wolfram Alpha. All right, so we start with 2, and then we let's see. Oh, we just do 200. Yeah. To the 2000th. Yeah, no, with 200. Oh no, I'm sorry, I did the wrong number there. There we go. Yeah, no, if we had 200 kids per or per person, although it would take a lot longer than each year, so we'll say that it's 20 kids effectively. Yeah, actually, 1 billion is not a super unreasonable result if we assume 20 kids. All right, fair enough. 1 billion is a okay-ish kind of a thing. It would actually be a little bit more if we actually did the 200, but like that would require me to do things like keep track of like how fast people are dying and the rate at which they're doing kids. So it's a little bit more complicated than just per generation, because with the 900-year time frame, it complicates things. But yeah, 1 billion is actually pretty good if you just do a back of the envelope calculation for population growth. Okay, fair enough, Kent. Good job. We'll take a drink for that actually being a reasonable estimate.
In Genesis chapter 6, God said, I will destroy man. The Bible also says there were giants in the earth back in those days.
It sure
Let's
does.
just consider this as a possibility.
Well, it says there were Nephilim, which the Septuagint translates as gigantes, which like the degree to which the author of that section of Genesis thought of the Nephilim as being tall in stature is up in the air, right? We don't know exactly what he meant. It does seem like basically when you get to the conquest narrative, where the Israelites are going into Canaan, that at that point the idea of the Nephilim being gigantic was actually in mind. But like the conquest narrative wasn't written by the same person who wrote Genesis 1 through 11, which itself was actually more than one person. So does the Bible say there were giants in before the flood? I think it's reasonable, but like we don't know that that's what they meant. It's also reasonable to say maybe not. I think that yes is probably like slightly more likely, but like I don't know. I'm not a Hebraist. I'm not a biblical scholar. Ask Kip Davis.
Suppose Adam and Eve were 12 feet tall.
Oh, okay, I'm not going to do that generally, but sure, for this purposes, okay, sure. Adam and Eve were taller than it is physically possible for a human to be. Got it.
Suppose everybody was 12 feet tall back then. Okay.
I'm just going to take a drink. That's stupid.
If we dig up the bones today, a fragment of a bone from somebody 12 feet tall, people who already have the evolution mindset already think that man started off small and he's getting bigger. Therefore, whatever this is, it can't be a giant human because we know man used to be smaller, like a chimpanzee.
Okay. People can find human bones that are taller than we would expect and still identify them as human bones. In fact, that happens in archaeology sometimes, where we'll like in a population of relatively normal sized humans, we'll find some remains that are like 7 feet tall. And like that happens. Also, the way that we determine whether or not bones are human is not just by their size, but humans actually have osteological characteristics that set them apart as a particular species, right? Things like the globular shape of the cranium, the chin, the angle between the femoral shaft and the actual knee joint, whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. There are ways that we can tell that a bone belongs to a human. Now, granted, if it's a small enough fragment, then okay, who knows? But also, if it's a small enough fragment that we can't identify it, well, then it's probably small enough that we don't know how big the individual was, right? Like if I took a human rib or something, you can identify a human rib as a human rib. But if I shattered it into like 5,000 pieces, not only do you not know what that bone was, you also don't know how big the animal was in the first place. So no, I'm sorry, Ken, but you can't just say like, well, maybe people misidentified the big bones. As what? Do you have a single instance of a bone that's big that you think belonged to a human giant that you can show us why you think that? Because the answer is no, right? There are no such bones. It's just, it would be cool if there were. Well, okay, great. Fear Uckfeistmonger says, Ken seems to think the strong force can just change. So maybe he thinks gravity was just different. Yeah, actually, maybe. Vesta Freya says, have you considered that before the flood, women had litters of children? I had not considered that. Falacolion Kennedy says, is it the tibula? It should be the tibula. you don't know what the tibula is, Nephilim Free, who's mostly gone from the internet now, as far as I can tell, is a creationist who once gave a talk about like hominin anatomy or something over on Donnie Badinsky's channel, and kept referring to a bone he called the tibula, and no one on the panel bothered to correct him, either because they're too stupid to know that that's not a real bone, or because they just don't care. Skeptics and Scoundrels for $5 says 12-foot Eve, death by snoo. I mean, death by heart failure, but like, yeah, also death by snoo. That's fair. And oh, I started to drop some frames. That's fun. All right, let's update this, and then we are actually over time, so we are going to start wrapping things up here now that I am updating this. So sorry, Bent, you did not get any pizza today. You are just going to have to, you're just going to have to be hungry. I don't know what to tell you. All right, so Ben, you got anything coming up that you want to tell people about other than your impending death from starvation?
I do not, no.
No? All right. Let's see what is coming up here. So we did not get the extra stream this weekend. I might have a similar... Actually, I probably won't have that same goal for Saturday, because then that would have to be last minute, and I don't really want to try to get someone on last minute and all that stuff. So we probably won't do that. But anyway, let's see. So today is Tuesday. On Thursday, starting at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern, buckle up, because we have a gigantic video coming out. It is 6 hours, 50 minutes, and I think like 25 seconds. So it's almost a 7-hour stream. So basically, if you tune in, you will be able to go to bed to this stream. It is enormous. And that is going to be the supercut of the Canadian Creationist Gave Me Homework series, which was like a 4 or 5 part series, one of which was on its own like an hour and 45 minutes. So yeah, stay tuned for that. Then on Friday, over on Top Hats Off, I'm going to be doing episode 6 of season 3 of Star Trek Endurance. That is The Shepherd. And yes, I know that it is choppy video. I don't have a way to fix that at the moment. Let's see. Then on Saturday, we're going to continue on with Dan Biddle talking about Giants, which, hey, connects here. And then on Tuesday, next Tuesday, it will be Tisdall Tuesday with Chesh talking about Lawrence Tisdall, the Canadian creationist from Quebec. All right. If you are interested, over on the Dapper Dinosaur Discord server, we're going to be watching a couple episodes of Star Trek and Enterprise. There we go. So please come hang out for that. Otherwise, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day, rest of your week. And remember, ice must be abolished.
Hey, before you leave, I just want to take a second to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or above.
Ben Hovind, Tapioca Weasel, The Plastic Mouse, Mikau Dominiak, Bear Kolesqua, Edwin M., Kenneth Swenson, John Ackerman, Sphincter of Doom, Regios, Our Favorite Universe, Ian Chen, Eleron Teller, Phil Rivara, David Hercules, Joshua Geese, Dan Sheedy, Pega Jace, Arrow Dodger, Gordon Loves Science, Amber Athelian, Prixie Purple, Agricola Sequa, Me, Myself, and I, and Ian Kiambi.
It's because of my channel members and patrons whom you're seeing on screen that this channel can stay afloat. Without you, it would all shut down. If you want to join the team, there's a link to join the channel below this video, and there's a link to join the Patreon in the description. On the Patreon, you can get a 15% discount for pledging annually, and either way, you get early access to virtually all of my scripted videos months before they come out for the general public. Thanks for watching.